Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bigfoot Forensics. It's the show that utilizes forensic science to investigate Bigfoot. So, I have been on a bit of a hiatus, and mainly it's because I've been writing this. That and a bunch of stuff at work, right? Because I'm still employed in this capacity. Anyway, this book is about how to cast your footwear or your Bigfoot impressions properly the first time. Okay, so each chapter is dedicated to a different type of substrate or soil or something like that. It has a few sections in there on what to do with some problematic soils or some problems you may run into. I hope you get it. I hope you are interested in learning on how to do that. Okay. So, you know how when you're driving in the morning and you have some of your best thoughts, and then you get to work and you get distracted by actually having to work, and then you forget everything that you were thinking, like you were having some of those best moments. It's kind of like being, it's kind of like having a little bit of alcohol and then having some of your best ideas, right? Anyway, so here I am, I'm driving, and this was quite a while ago. I just figured I'd tell you about it. So I'm driving along and I'm thinking about the size of Bigfoot, right? All the reports of his size. And then it dawns on me from a recent trip to Maine that I had taken about the size of a moose and how they regulate their temperatures and some of the issues that they have. So I'm going to Maine to go camping at this place that you can only get to by boat. It was absolutely beautiful. I actually did get to see a moose. It almost ran into the road and hit the car. So that prompted on the drive before we got to the boat to do some Google searches, right? So I'm researching all about moose and I discover some crazy things because one of the things that I'm thinking about is I thought I had heard about they have a hard time being in warm weather. So the moose, it's also the tallest and the second largest land animal in North America, falling short only to the American bison in body mass, unless you count Bigfoot. An adult moose can run 35 miles an hour for short distances and 20 miles an hour for longer runs. That sounds very close to the bear, does it not? Of course, I don't know how long a bear can run, but I know close to 35 on certain bears, right? So year round, the moose snacks mainly on leaves, stems, twigs, and the bark of small shrubs, and they eat plenty of all these things. And yes, that's right, I said stems and twigs, bark, small shrubs. A full-grown moose can gobble up to 70 pounds of food a day. They have a secondary stomach called the rumen. So when a moose eats, it swallows plants without chewing them much. The food then goes down to the rumen, where it mixes with saliva and separates into solids and liquids. The solids clump together to form a cud. We've heard that word before. So they form a cud, which the moose regurgitates and chews again. Imagine having to do that. Okay, anyway, the rumen allows moose to consume wood and other woody materials, which provides virtually an unlimited food supply in the winter. The digestion that takes place in the rumen also generates more heat than the moose's resting metabolism, which is pretty freaking amazing. Okay, so you heard that. The digestion that takes place in the rumen generates more heat than the moose's resting metabolism. All right, so the rumen can weigh up to 112 pounds in the winter. Well, I mean, remember, we're talking about a giant animal, so its stomach is going to be huge. Well, part of whatever, the rumen is going to be huge, right? Anyway, speaking of weighing a lot, an adult moose can average 1,000 to 1,500 pounds and stand 6 to 7 feet at their shoulder, and they can be 8 to 9 feet in length. They're a car. Also, moose have a long gestation period for about 230 days. Twins are not uncommon. Can you imagine being pregnant for 230 days? I can't imagine being pregnant. But if I could, I don't think I could imagine it for 230 days. Back to the mooses. They can move each eye independently. I can't do that. I didn't know that they could do that. I mean, we just talked about deer, right? Well, some of you who saw the deer thing that I put online. Anyway, moose have no upper front teeth. This space allows them to suck small marine plants into their mouth while grazing underwater. If you're still with me, you're going to find out why I'm talking about moose this way. It's pretty amazing. Anyway, moose are able to dive as far down as 20 to 25 feet into water and can hold their breath for up to, guess what? A minute. Doesn't seem that long, but we're talking about a moose diving to 20 to 25 feet and holding their breath for a minute. They can do this to cool down, but also for food in the colder months. That's down at the bottom. All the plants and stuff that grow on the bottom, 20, 25 feet. They can also close their nostrils, which gives them the ability to graze underwater. Their respiration rate also slows down when they're in water, which allows them to stay underwater for longer periods of time. Which is kind of weird because I just said that they could stay under for a minute, but that's what I read. So anyway, guess what? Those giant cars with feet, they can actually jump about 6 feet. They have hollow hairs to insulate them down to temperatures of -60. And we're not going to get into hollow hairs today. Just know that moose have hollow hairs to insulate them down to the temperature of -60 degrees. And even during the winter time, white-tailed deer have hollow hair, which they lose and get replaced by their summer hair, which is not hollow. Okay, so elk, mule, deer, and horses, they sweat, but moose don't sweat. They dissipate some of that body heat by breathing, and when they get too warm, they'll pretty much stay in the water or near the water. A full-grown moose can swim up to 6 miles an hour, and they can keep that pace for 2 hours. I've now seen videos of moose swimming between islands and sometimes getting attacked by orcas. Turns out that's a lot more common than I even realized. Moose getting attacked by orcas. Wildlife biologist Dan Thompson, he was studying moose, and he learned that the moose was inhaling ambient air that was 68 degrees Fahrenheit and exhaling a breath a second later that was 95 degrees. Taking 60 breaths every minute, the moose was using its breath to pump out excess body heat back into the environment. It's pretty amazing. Conventional wisdom has held that at a certain point, ambient summer air temperatures begin to stress moose, around 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Well, it turns out that this is a generalization, and it's a lot more complicated than that. However, we're not going to get into all those details. We've gotten into quite a bit so far about just the moose. So why am I talking about the moose? Originally, I was thinking about the reported size of Bigfoot, thinking about the amount of food it would take to sustain a creature such a size. I had also heard how a moose can overheat at certain temperatures, and I wondered how they dealt with that. In short, I dumbly compared in my mind Bigfoot to the size of a moose and wondered if I could find any similarities that would help with understanding Bigfoot and its preferred environment. And that's when I discovered all these crazy things about the moose and how it adapts. Then all that was ruined because I was about to apply some of those things possibly to the Bigfoot. And then I looked up the 1,200 to 2,000 pound American bison. Apparently, they don't have the heat problems of the moose, not even close, actually. So that theory went right out the window. So why did I decide to tell you guys this? I never could have imagined on my own or creatively came up with the ways the moose has to adapt to its environment, which now translates to all the ways I can't imagine to how Bigfoot may have adapted to its environment. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and go to bigfootforensics.com.